Samuel was sitting in his living room, staring at the undecorated Christmas tree. The feeling of emptiness that consumed him was not new. Every year he promised himself it would be different, but the cycle repeated itself. Something prevented him from fully embracing Christmas, as if a part of his soul was stuck in the past. That night, Clara occupied his thoughts. He knew they had drifted apart because of yet another fight, like so many others. They argued about the family's Christmas traditions. She had insisted on having supper at her house, while he wanted to go back to the house where they grew up. A small argument, but one that escalated. Harsh words were said, things that neither of them really wanted to say, but which created a barrier. Samuel began to reflect on how these arguments had repeated themselves over the years. It wasn't the first time they had drifted apart. There was a clear pattern. Something happened. They both got hurt, distanced themselves, and the silence lasted for months, sometimes years. They always hoped that the other would take the initiative to reconcile, but no one took the first step. This realization brought a new weight. He realized that he was trapped in a cycle that he didn't know how to break. It wasn't just with Clara. This pattern of withdrawal and silence was also manifesting itself in other areas of his life. Friends he had let go of, opportunities he had abandoned for fear of trying again. The recurring pattern was a reflection of something deeper, a fear of facing difficult emotions. Samuel realized that his pride and his inability to deal with conflict were rooted in his childhood. He remembered his mother trying to get him and Clara to understand each other after fights, saying, "You're siblings. There will always be differences, but your love is greater than that." However, he had never absorbed that lesson. As Samuel relived these memories, he realized that repeating the cycle was like a karmic debt. Something unresolved inside him kept him stuck, preventing him from moving forward. It was as if the universe kept presenting him with the same challenge until he finally learned to overcome it. He looked at the phone on the table and whispered to himself, "I need to change this." But as usual, the courage didn't come immediately. He knew that this was only the beginning. After reflecting on the recurring patterns in his relationship with Clara, Samuel felt a familiar nagging, that knot in his stomach that always appeared when he thought about the past. He knew he wasn't just dealing with the words spoken during their last argument. There was something deeper. Old hurts, insecurities, and a pride that seemed unbreakable. As he walked through the snow-covered streets, Samuel tried to escape his thoughts. The lights of the houses seemed to mock him, as if reminding him of everything he was losing. He found himself reliving painful moments. The first time he and Clara had a fight after his mother's death. The day he decided not to go to her birthday because he thought she didn't care. The feeling that he was always trying to prove something to her, and vice versa. These memories triggered a wave of emotions that he couldn't control. He stopped suddenly in front of a square where a group of children were playing with snow, and something in him broke. He felt his eyes fill with tears, but tried to disguise it. "Not here," he muttered to himself, trying to push the feeling away. It was at that moment that he saw him for the first time. The man, dressed as Santa Claus, was standing in the square, holding a bell and watching Samuel with a penetrating gaze. Samuel tried to ignore him, but the man waved, as if he knew exactly what he was feeling. "Merry Christmas," said the man, with a tone that sounded more like a declaration than a greeting. He held out a small card to Samuel. Samuel hesitated before accepting it. When he read the words, he felt as if the ground had disappeared from under his feet. Sometimes what you're looking for isn't lost. It's just waiting to be found. That sentence hit Samuel like a punch. He looked at the man, ready to question him. But somehow Santa had already disappeared. He spun on his heels, looking around the square, but there was no sign of the man. It was as if he had never been there. Samuel returned home with the card still in his hands, and the words seemed to echo in his mind. He sat on the sofa and stared into the void. Something about that meeting and those words made all his repressed emotions surface. He felt guilty for having left Clara alone for so long. He felt angry at himself for always choosing pride over love. He felt afraid that if he continued on the same path, he would end up completely alone. Santa hadn't said anything beyond that sentence, but somehow he had held up a mirror to Samuel's soul, revealing wounds that he avoided facing. Samuel realized that he was reacting not only to the phrase on the card, but to years of accumulated guilt. He remembered specific moments when he had chosen to walk away from Clara, instead of trying to make things right. Each memory was like a wound that he had never allowed to heal. He understood that these emotional triggers were not signs of weakness, but that there was something inside him that needed to be healed. He held up the card and whispered, Maybe this is a sign. But he still didn't know what to do with it. The next morning, Samuel woke up with heavy eyes. He had spent the night thinking about the phrase on the card, the mysterious Santa Claus, and above all, Clara. He knew he had to do something, but he still felt paralyzed. It was as if every attempt to move towards Clara pulled him back, plunging him back into doubts and insecurities. He picked up his phone, looked at Clara's number on the screen, and began to type a message. "Hi, Clara. It's been a while. I'd like to talk." He stared at the words. They seemed insignificant in the face of the weight of what he was feeling. He deleted the message. He took a deep breath, trying to convince himself that calling would be better. But then the thought came to him. What if she doesn't want to talk to me? What if she's still hurt? This internal conflict was so familiar that it seemed almost comfortable. He desperately wanted to get closer, but the fear of rejection made him pull back. It was like a game of push and pull, where no one won. As he stared at the phone, Samuel began to reflect on how this dynamic repeated itself in his life. He always found it easier to wait for Clara to take the initiative. She was always the one who came to him after an argument, the one who made up, the one who built bridges. He realized that by letting his pride speak louder, he was putting her in the position of the pursuer, while he remained in the role of the runner. Maybe she stopped trying because she's tired, he thought. The insight hit him hard. It wasn't fair to expect Clara to do all the emotional work. This time, he needed to be the one to make the first move. As he held the phone, a childhood memory surfaced. He and Clara were playing in a park when Samuel, out of jealousy, took her favorite doll and hid it. Clara cried for hours, but it was she who came to him later, offering him her favorite toy as a form of reconciliation. "I needn't have hidden the doll," he muttered, smiling sadly at the memory. It was as if that push-pull dynamic had followed them since they were children. Samuel moved away, Clara moved closer, and he never knew how to deal with it. Holding up the card he had received the night before, Samuel realized that he needed to break this cycle. It wasn't fair to expect Clara to always be the first to give in. He needed to show that he was also willing to rebuild the bridge between them. But how? He still didn't know what to say or how to start. Then he saw the golden Christmas star in the decorations drawer. The star that, as children, they used to fight to put on the top of the tree. He held it and felt a surge of emotion. Perhaps it wasn't about finding the right words, but about somehow showing that he wanted to start again. Samuel put the star in a small gift box, wrote a simple note. "Shall we decorate this tree together again?" and drove to Clara's house. Anxiety was burning inside him. He left the box on her doorstep, rang the doorbell, and left quickly. Sitting in the car, he watched as Clara opened the door. She looked at the box and then at the street, as if she knew he was nearby. Samuel wanted to get out of the car, but again felt fear pulling him back. He stood there, watching from a distance. The push-pull dynamic between them wasn't just about pride or hurt. It was a reflection of his deepest fears. Samuel's fear of rejection and Clara's fear of abandonment. To change, he needed to learn to push himself forward, even when it seemed safer to retreat. Samuel stayed in the car for a few minutes, watching Clara open the box. Even from a distance, he could see the slight smile forming on her lips as she held up the golden star. The image brought up an avalanche of memories, as if he were reliving a moment lost in time. Samuel remembered a Christmas in his childhood. He and Clara were fighting over who would put the star on top of the tree. His mother, laughing at their dispute, suggested that they both hold the star together and put it in place. Although reluctant, they obeyed, and the moment ended in laughter and hugs. At that moment, everything seemed so simple. Love overcame small disagreements. The memory was so vivid that Samuel could almost hear his mother's laughter and feel the touch of Clara's small hands holding the star next to his. He blinked rapidly, wiping away the tears. The déjà vu was so strong that it felt like a call, as if the past was trying to remind him of something essential. Samuel realized that it wasn't the first time he had felt this kind of connection with the past when thinking about Clara. It was as if the most significant moments of their lives were connected by an invisible thread, bringing to light the lessons they both still needed to learn. The feeling of déjà vu was a reminder that some stories don't end. They keep coming back until they are resolved. He began to wonder if what he felt wasn't just guilt, but also a recognition of something bigger. Perhaps the connection between him and Clara was deeper than he had realized, something that transcended time and space. It was as if every Christmas brought a new chance to mend what was broken. The star that Clara now held was not just an ornament. For Samuel, it symbolized everything they had lost and everything they could still regain. The star was a point of convergence between the past and the present, a reminder that, even after years of hurt and separation, the bond between them still existed. Maybe the star is more than a symbol of Christmas, thought Samuel. Maybe it's a symbol of both of us. Proof that despite our differences, we can always find a way to reconnect. Maybe the star is more than a symbol of Christmas, thought Samuel. Maybe it's a symbol of both of us. Proof that despite our differences, we can always find a way to reconnect. Inside the house, Clara held the star and looked at Samuel's note. His words, "Shall we decorate this tree together again?" echoed in her mind, taking her back to the same childhood moments that Samuel was reliving. For her, the star also had a special meaning. It was the one ornament that had always survived life's changes, as if it were destined to remain as a reminder of the bond between them. As Clara examined the star, she felt something she couldn't explain. It was as if she was seeing not only Samuel, but also the child he had been, the brother who had held her hand in difficult times and helped her through the pain of losing her mother. She realized that despite the distance between them, something had always united them. Samuel finally got out of the car. He was nervous, but the memory of that childhood Christmas gave him courage. He walked to Clara's door, which was still open, and found her standing in the hallway, holding the star. They stared at each other for a moment, and Samuel felt as if time had stopped. It was as if they were living the same moment they had shared so many times before. He took a deep breath and said, I remember when we used to fight over this star. I think it's time we put it in the right place together again." Clara smiled, and the tears they had both been trying to hold back finally came. Without saying a word, she pulled him into an embrace, and for a moment, they were once again the children who only had each other. The déjà vu wasn't just a coincidence. It was an invitation for Samuel and Clara to reconnect, an opportunity to relive the most beautiful parts of their history and bring that connection into the present. It was also a reminder that life's most important lessons come from love, not pride or hurt. After the hug, Samuel and Clara sat in her living room, where a partially decorated Christmas tree dominated the room. There was a tranquility in the air, but also an underlying tension. They both knew that reconciliation was only the first step, and that there was a lot to be said and faced. Not everything would be as easy as that initial moment. Each day brings a message based on stories, forgiveness, and purpose found in Scripture. It's a call to identify patterns that hold us back, just as Samuel had to face his own and hand them over to God. The devotional isn't just about reading. It's about living these lessons day by day, cultivating deeper relationships with God and the people around us. This can be the turning point in your journey, a moment to leave the past behind and embrace the new life that God offers. Now I want to hear from you. How did this story speak to your heart? Is there someone in your life with whom you need to reconnect? Is there something that God has put on your heart to change this Christmas? Share your reflection or experience in the comments. Perhaps your story will inspire others to take the first step on their own journeys of healing and transformation. And if you decide to start the chosen devotional, come back and let us know how it's going. Remember, sometimes what you're looking for isn't lost. It's just waiting to be found. May this Christmas be the beginning of a new story in your life. Love and prayers, George.